Hey everybody, how's it going? This is going to be a basic ramble on heat in the Battletech setting, specifically for the mechs. That's what I'm going to focus on here. Heat for the mechs, because the mechs, like I said, are the bread and butter of the Battletech series. So, it doesn't matter if you're playing the video game series or the miniature game, heat is a factor, and I like that. It's not just a fluff thing about the mech, it's actual stuff that affects you in the game. So, what we're talking about here is a mech that's powered by a fusion engine reactor, essentially. So it's generating heat. It's generating heat just by being on and just by walking around. But a mech really generates its heat in combat. Now, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty on it. I'm not going to explain how it exactly works in the miniature game rules-wise or in the video game or anything like that. Just know that it does. I'm going to go over the two big reasons that you want to control your heat, but I'll touch upon some other stuff. So some of the other stuff is pilot. Now, the pilot is strapped into the mech, which is powered by this fusion engine reactor that can get in excess of 700 degrees Kelvin. That's pretty hot. It's like 900 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. So, it's insulated. If life support's working, pilot's not going to get cooked to death. They wear cooling vests or cooling suits to help keep them cool under combat situations, because it does get pretty hot in that mech. However, and this is more pertaining to the miniature game, if the life support systems get damaged because of heavy damage, the pilot can actually start getting injured by heat. So that's one of the factors, one of the minor factor stuff. Another thing with heat is it's going to make the mech sluggish. The mech is going to kind of slow down. It's not going to be able to target as efficiently. Things like that. Because the heat is literally messing with the mech. The mech isn't reacting well to the heat. And you may be wondering, okay, well, how do I deal with heat? Well, time and heat sinks. It takes time for the heat to dissipate. But the mech's one line of defense is heat sinks. The more operational heat sinks the mech has, the faster it can dissipate heat. For this basic talk, let's just think about heat as an enemy. There's very, very few reasons, in my opinion, why you would want to have your mech build up heat. Most of the time, it's not a good idea to have that happen. So, you have the heat as an enemy, not just your opponents you're facing. So, I mentioned some of the basic stuff, some of the minor stuff, and yes, injuring the pilot is minor, even though it could kill him. The two big things, really, that you want to look out for is the mech automatically shutting itself down because of heat, or any ammunition stored in that mech exploding. So starting off with auto shutdown. Both in the video game series and in the miniature game that can happen, and it's avoidable in both. In the video game series, you can hit the override button, which is a bit dangerous. In the miniature game, it's a dice roll. You roll some dice, and if you succeed, then the pilot's able to override the system. If you fail, the mech automatically shuts down to bleed off heat. It's a fail-safe. Not the biggest of deals if no enemy is around you. Let's say you killed off the enemy right in front of you, and nobody else is around, you overheat from it, and you shut down. That's not that big of a deal. What becomes a problem is if you're in the middle of a big fight with your mechs against your opponent's mechs, and your mech starts shutting down from heat. It leaves them wide open. They have no way of counteracting anything. They are just along for the ride at that point to get shot up by the enemy if they so choose. It's a real big disadvantage to have your stuff shut down and not fighting back. You can attempt to restart it, and then after the heat diminishes below a certain level, the mech will auto restart. But still never a good thing to have happen in the middle of combat, because that's basically where it's going to happen. That's where mechs generate the most heat. Depending on the mech, not all mechs generate heat equally. You could generate heat really quickly, or it could take a while, depending upon the mech and how many weapon systems you fire at once all the time. The second thing, which is a big deal in and of itself, is ammunition explosions. Now this is kind of a random occurrence, both in the video games, and it's not so much random when it can happen in the miniature game, but you can again roll some dice, but it's more of a luck roll. Did you luckily avoid an ammunition explosion is what it's representing. You pass the roll, you avoid it. You fail the roll, and ammunition starts cooking off. It blows up, it does damage internally to the mech, it injures the pilot in a feedback from the neural helmet, and it basically turns the mech from 0 to 0 real quick. It can literally cripple your mech instantaneously, flat out just destroy it potentially. I mean, it's a violent thing when ammunition explodes in your mech. Even with the protective equipment called CASE, which stands for Cellular Ammunition Storage Equipment, which I'm not going to go into the specifics of it, even it, which helps mitigate the damage from an ammunition explosion, doesn't prevent it from exploding. It just protects from it. So that's a big problem, because even with your mech still standing upright and able to fight, you just lost a weapon system because you lost the ammunition for it. Plus you took damage, plus your pilot just got injured. It's not good. So that's what can happen with heat. Now, other than that, heat's going to build up and drop down through the course of playing the game. That's just the way it works. It's not something to be afraid of and avoid, or else you won't be fighting. But it does add another layer. It adds another layer of strategy to the game, because now it's not just my mechs maneuvering across the battlefield to blow up my opponent's mechs. It's my mechs doing that while maintaining safe heat levels for the most part, and knowing when to take that gamble, and knowing when to hold back and let the heat die down. So I like that. It's an added level of strategy to the game. Anyways, that's it for this little basic heat ramble. Hopefully this was somewhat informative. Thanks for sticking through it, and until next time, take it easy.